Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark. More from them in a bit. Our story begins back in the late 2000s. Apple, big company. They had the iPhone, they had the computers, they got the Apple TV, remember that? And they were working on a bigger iPhone. Yeah, Steve Jobs, he was an ambitious man. Ambitious, a hippie, gross, disgusting freak. He was also pretty mean. Steve Jobs had grand plans for the future of Apple. He wanted to build a car. Now this was ambitious. This was an ambitious plan for Steve because previously to this point, the company had not made cars. To be fair, in Detroit where they were making all the cars, things were not going well. Obama was, he was bailing out. He was doing the bailouts. The cars were bad. They were breaking down constantly. Most people were moving to the Oriental cars at this time. Can we still say that? And Jobs figured, hey, should be easy enough for me, Steve Jobs, to take on the big three. But he also had some other competition. See, Tesla, they just launched the first Tesla Roadster. Jobs liked the idea that somebody, somewhere, could just make a car. He just wanted to do that. But luckily, unfortunately, he died. Hey, look. Everybody look, it's the Surfshark. It's the Surfshark, everybody, from Surfshark VPN. That's right, Mr. Surfshark. Surfshark is a virtual private network that keeps your data safe from sneaky bad dudes on the internet. Change your virtual location with the click of a button, allowing you to watch movies from all across the globe. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi so people can't steal all your monies. Don't you ever get annoyed by the fact that big companies are constantly making money off of your data? Don't let them listen to those personal, intimate conversations you have between your shark friends. Surfshark will take care of that. Surfshark keeps them away. Surfshark keeps them at bay. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. Enter coupon code KNOWLEDGEHUSK for an extra 3 months free using the link below. Use that link. In the past 60 years or so, we really haven't seen a lot of companies pop up and start making cars. Maybe a few Chinese companies, but when we're talking global car manufacturers that have sprung up in the second half of the 20th century, you got maybe a Hyundai, a Kia, and that's about it. There is the exception, one exception, in Tesla. But it took Tesla like 16 years to start making money. And before that point, it needed a lot of government subsidies. It had pretty much no major competition. And there was a lot of money from investors to get to that point. Yes, a lot of smaller manufacturers have popped up with smaller production numbers, but these are not mass market machines. These are not massive companies. They're not selling a ton of units. Again, we don't know if Steve Jobs knew this. I doubt it. His brain was riddled with vegetarianism and all those other diseases by this point, so he wasn't all there. But there was something going on by one of Apple's largest competitors that was catching the eye of the company's new CEO, Tim Apple. The Google car. Yeah, around 2014 or so, the Google car was one of the most high technologies out there. Cars that don't have gas pedals, that don't have brakes, that don't have steering wheels, that drive themselves, and they keep you safe. They're safer than humans because they're robots, and robots are always better than people. People were excited. People were so hyped because you could get fucking plastered. People looked at this and they thought, that is what I want. I want to put my life in this thing's hands. I value my life so little that I trust this thing to keep me safe. Look, the Google car, as silly as it seems now, was probably viewed by Apple as maybe the single biggest threat to the company's entire future. Seriously, you gotta think, while Apple is big, they are massive, they are one of the biggest corporations out there. Almost all of their success and value is derived from the iPhone. And the Google car, as strange as it seems, it threatened that. It was a threat to the iPhone. Like if somebody goes out and they buy a self-driving car, they buy a Google car and they get in their Google car and the car says, hey, we only work with Android. People have two options. They can either throw their iPhones away and buy an Android, or they can throw their car away. Throwing your iPhone away was gonna be a lot easier. You know, it's gonna be a lot easier to just move to the Google ecosystem because you got the Google car. And Apple's over here thinking, what if by the mid 2020s, Google was the biggest car company in the world? You know, what if everybody's buying these Google cars and nobody cares about the Apple phone anymore because the Apple phone doesn't work with the Google car? So yeah, 2014, Tim Apple decides we're gonna launch Project Titan, the Apple car. And its goals were ambitious. It needed to, one, just be the Google car. That was it. That was the only goal they had. But it turns out that was just too much for Apple to handle, because it was too much for Google to handle. Even the Google car was not really the Google car. It was a series of test vehicles and prototypes that got a lot of attention and seemed to give people this idea that in just a few years, we're not gonna need to drive anywhere. But this was not gonna happen, because making a car is hard. Back in 2014, people did not know the limits of these technologies. A lot of people assumed that the near future of cars was an all-electric one. Analysts were predicting that by 2020, about 30% of all new vehicle sales would be electric. And if that were true, the entire car industry was getting ready for a seismic shift towards these electric vehicles. And so everybody wanted to get ready for that, you know? Problem is, getting ready for that is a problem. So imagine the challenge of not only trying to create a new car platform, but also make it an electric car platform, which isn't very common by this point, make it a self-driving car platform, which doesn't exist by this point, and also you're a company that has never, ever had any experience making cars. This was the position Apple was in, and it seems like an impossible challenge, but Google's over here doing it, so we gotta do it too. See, Google was spending billions developing this new Waymo brand that was entering production in Michigan. So the assumption was they were pretty serious about their car. And Apple, they got scared. So they did what they do best: steal. Seriously though, that was Apple's approach here. They just used their unlimited funds to hire talent from every major car manufacturer they could, and they just went on a poaching spree. Self-driving cars today use cameras and fancy AI to detect oncoming vehicles and people and dogs and children, and they decide whether they want to hit those things or avoid them. But these are imperfect solutions. While all this fancy camera AI stuff might work on the highways of Southern California, it probably won't be sufficient for the dirt roads of Michigan in the winter. You know, you get some snow, some mud on those cameras, and suddenly your self-driving car can't drive itself no more. Now, Google and Apple's cars had to find a way to fix this problem, and they did. It's called LiDAR. LiDAR uses lasers, and these lasers do something, I don't really know, but they allow a car to see in these poor weather conditions better than a simple camera could. But it's really expensive. It was estimated that the Google car LiDAR system was like $70K. You also have to deal with the law. How do you regulate self-driving cars? You know, Apple's vehicle had already gotten in a wreck pretty quickly, although it was not the car's fault. And while this might have given Apple and self-driving cars some good press, as it implied that humans were more dangerous than machines, it still raised some questions. Like, for one, generally to drive in most locations, you need a driver's license. And if you crash into somebody and it's your fault, the law has ways to do things to you, to punish you for your sins, you know? Insurance. How do you deal with the self-driving car that gets in a wreck? Do you blame the driver? Do you blame the company who made the vehicle? Or do you blame the inanimate object? All of these questions needed to be answered before the car would reach mass production and get on the roads. Early in 2016, Google reported that its self-driving cars needed to be taken over by humans to avoid accidents 272 times. 13 of those times, the cars almost got in a wreck. And once, a Google self-driving car had hit a local bus. This was test scenarios in ideal weather with a small number of vehicles on the road in areas that Google was familiar with. Having this many potential accidents started to sort of break the idea that self-driving was a guaranteed safer alternative than human driving. And so the hype of these cars started to turn a little bit more into fear. There's often philosophical debates about self-driving cars and the decisions that they would have to make. I don't remember exactly how they go, but it's like, would you rather run over a bus full of children or the woman you love? Now, I could make that decision, but what's the robot gonna decide? So you got Apple over here who's paying 1,000 high-profile employees to work on this project. A project that may or may not ever release, a project that could damage the Apple brand in the event of some tragic self-driving motorway incident. There's just a lot of problems going on here, you know? So Tim Apple gives the team an ultimatum. He says, fix this. Figure out a better direction for this project. Figure out how we make this work by 2017 or we're closing you down. So the team had to make a decision. One option was to scale the project down. It was clear that Apple did not have the resources to mass produce a car. If the project was going to continue forward and try to release around 2020 or so, there was no way Apple could do it themselves, and they would need to partner with an established car manufacturer. Also, rather than being a fully self-driving vehicle, this car would have to just, I don't know, maybe drive itself on the highways. It would basically be another Tesla, just not made by Tesla. The other option was to wait. Put the whole thing on hold. Give it a few years, wait for the self-driving tech to improve, costs to decrease, and really give Apple the time to properly execute its vision. This would mean rather than launching in 2020, they might have to wait a while. At this point, the project lead left. He left the team. So yeah, things were not going well. In 2017, it was being reported that the Apple Car project was taking the first route. The original plan for a self-driving car with no steering wheel, no brakes, no gas pedal would instead be a more traditional car and partner with some existing auto manufacturer. But even this proved too much. Turns out if you just start poaching employees from every major car manufacturer, they might get pretty pissed, you know? They might just not want to work with you anymore. Like Apple had spent the past few years just taking top level talents from these companies, and now they were coming back to them and saying, hey, you wanna work with us because we can't do it ourselves. Surprisingly, most companies did not want to work with them. Over the next few years, just about every report that has been about the Apple Car has been contradicted by the next report. By this point, it's possible that Apple still will team up with another auto manufacturer to get this thing made, but even if they did, would anybody care? I mean, look, Sony already did this with Honda and nobody cared. And while there are reports that Apple is still driving those test cars, trying to get it out for a 2028 release date, whatever this is, whatever this Apple Car ends up being, it's not what Tim Apple originally envisioned all those years ago. Once again, huge thanks to this video sponsor, Surfshark. Great company, great product, great shark. Secure your privacy with Surfshark by entering coupon code KNOWLEDGEHUSK for an extra 3 months free using the link in the description. Do it.